The psychologist, one of the psychologists who developed the tactics used in the Bush era, this is the Politico, in the Bush era interrogation program, as though they've never been used before. Oh, no. All this stuff that went on at Club Gitmo, yeah, that's Bush era only. Anyway, one of the psychologists who developed the tactics is disputing the Senate staffer. And it's really not a Senate Intelligence Committee. It's a Senate staff report. The staff wrote it, didn't interview anybody at CIA, didn't talk to any of the interrogators. Pure political document is just low-rent chump, is what this is. And one of the psychologists who developed the tactics says it's not true. It's just plain not true. Some of these things are just plain not true. It's a bunch of hooey. His name is James Mitchell. And he admitted all this to Reuters in an interview published yesterday. He said some of these things are just plain not true. They took all kinds of things out of context. Mitchell said he believed the Senate staff report was intended to smear people involved with the interrogation program. He wouldn't specifically say which parts were inaccurate because he claims to have a non-disclosure agreement. Do you remember, ladies and gentlemen, back in 2005 on the Senate floor when Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois compared interrogators at Guantanamo Bay to interrogators working for Pol Pot in Cambodia and the Soviets, their gulags, and the Nazis? Well, Anderson Cooper did remember that. And last night on CNN's Anderson Cooper 360, he spoke with legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin about the Senate Intelligence Committee staff torture report. And this is how that sounded.
When you read this, if you envision Nazis doing this, I mean, I even hate to say this, if you envision the Khmer Rouge doing this, you can imagine it. I mean, it's not that far removed from stuff they were doing. I mean, rectally, feeding somebody to the point violently beyond any medical necessity, waterboarding.
It does sound like stuff that people saw in movies and thought they would try out. It is not something that the government has ever sanctioned.
That's just not true. The point is that the Democrats on this committee had all been told. That's what Jose Rodriguez has been trying to get people to understand. The Democrats from Dianne Feinstein to you name it were all told, and they all signed off on it. On closed-door sessions and public sessions, they were told. And they signed off. They had no problem with it. They just decided to politicize it. This is like the second or third time. But does this not ring familiar? I mean, here's Anderson Cooper. Why, if you read this, you can envision the Nazis doing this. I mean, I even hate to say it. No, he loves saying it. The truth. Comparing waterboarding to regimes that killed millions of people like Pol Pot? Waterboarding? Compared to Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge? Well, where did he get this? Anderson Cooper just didn't drag this stuff out of thin air. Let's go back to June 14th of 2005 on the Senate floor and Senator Dick Durbin.
If I read this to you and didn't tell you that it was an FBI agent describing what Americans had done to prisoners in their control, you would most certainly believe this must have happened by Nazis, Soviets in their gulags, or some mad regime, Pol Pot or others, that had no concern for human beings. Sadly, that's not the case. This was the action of Americans in treatment of their own prisoners.
This was the action of Americans. Isn't it amazing how similar this sounds? Back in 2005, 9 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, almost 9.5 years ago now, Dick Durbin says, if I read this to you and didn't tell you that it was an FBI agent, Tuesday night on CNN, Anderson Cooper says, when you read this, you envision Nazis, the Khmer Rouge, Pol Pot. I mean, it's not that far removed from stuff they were rectally feeding somebody. That is, people were on a hunger strike. That's what they leave out. On a hunger strike, and we are acting humanely to try to keep them alive. Rectally feeding is one of the ways you can do that. I mean, you could have done it other ways, but I mean, after all, who are these people? What the hell did they do? They killed 3,000 Americans, for crying out loud. Do these people forget this? Remember what I said yesterday about what real torture is? Putting your head on the pillow every night trying to go to sleep with the mental image of family members leaping to their deaths from the top floors of the World Trade Center to avoid burning to death. That's torture. And then waking up to the same thought. That's torture. And it never ends. So Dick Cheney was on special report with Bret Baier on the Fox News channel last night. Bret Baier said, what's your overall impression, Mr. Vice President, of this report? What's in it and its release?
It's a terrible piece of work, basically. It seems to me it's deeply flawed. They didn't bother to interview key people involved in the program. And I think that it's a sort of a classic example, which you see too often in Washington, where a group of politicians get together and sort of throw the professionals under the bus. We've seen it happen before. I can remember Iran-Contra. What happened here was that we asked the agency to go take steps and put in place programs that were designed to catch the bastards who killed 3,000 of us on 9/11.
Right. But see, the bastards that killed us on 9/11, we've got to be empathetic with them. We can't mistreat them. We have got to understand their rage. We've got to do seminars like State Department did and try to understand why they hate us. Why is their grievance legitimate? Because, you see, everybody that has a grievance with the United States is legitimate. Could be an Hispanic, could be an African-American, could be somebody from the Muslim community, could be anybody from anywhere. If they've got a grievance, then it must be warranted. Anybody with a grievance, it must be justified. That's the attitude of the American left, because we are the problem in the world. We are never the solution, and we are always guilty. But yeah, Cheney says we got to... bastards that killed 3,000 of us on 9/11. We're going to find out as much as we can about who did it, why, who planned it, and who's planning to do it again, and we're going to stop it. And that's considered extreme by people like Dick Durbin and Anderson Cooper. That's considered a little bit too much. That attitude's dangerous. That attitude is too risky. It's too extreme. It's fraught with danger. It's beneath our values to speak of them as bastards who killed us. No, that's not who we are. That's sacrificing our values. So next, Bret Baier said, well, the New York Times writes it this way about the report when told about one detainee being chained to the ceiling of his cell, clothed in a diaper, and forced to urinate and defecate on himself. Even a president known for his dead or alive swagger expressed discomfort. Is that true?
I don't have any idea. I've never heard of such a thing. What really bugs me as I watch all this process unfold is the men and women of the CIA did exactly what we wanted to have them do in terms of taking on this program. We've got Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who's the mastermind of 9/11, who has killed 3,000 Americans, taken down the World Trade Center, hit the Pentagon. He is in our possession. We know he's the architect. And what are we supposed to do? Kiss him on both cheeks and say, please, please, tell us what you know? Of course not. We did exactly what needed to be done in order to catch those who were guilty on 9/11 and to prevent a further attack. And we were successful on both parts.
This report says it was not successful.
The report's full of crap.
This report says it wasn't successful. And Dianne Feinstein read from it on the Senate floor, and she said, we didn't learn anything. Nothing that we did in terms of interrogating these prisoners helped us do anything. We didn't find any more about where bin Laden was. It didn't help us get bin Laden, didn't help us kill bin Laden. I guess Obama knew all that on his own. Yeah, not one worthwhile bit of information was gleaned from any of these interrogations. Cheney says, appropriately, the report's full of crap. And about this business, a detainee being chained to the ceiling of his cell, clothed in a diaper, and forced to urinate and defecate on himself. Cheney says, no such thing. I've never heard of it. But even if you picture that against the two planes hitting the World Trade Center, but that's not who we are, Mr. Limbaugh. It's so, it's just making a mockery of our values. Okay, then we could have just put him up there nude so that he would have pooped on the floor, right? Not on himself. Is that way to solve this? Is it the diaper that's the offensive thing here? Chaining to the ceiling? By the way, this doesn't jibe. We had a call yesterday from, I don't know if interrogator, but a security person down there that they've got the Quran, they've got flat screen TVs in their cells, and they're not allowed to be referred to as prisoners. They have to be called detainees. They get exercise time. Why do you think? If you go to rushlimbaugh.com, we have a thriving licensed merchandise business there with all of our Club Gitmo gear. Club Gitmo hats, Club Gitmo T-shirts, Club Gitmo everything. Bright orange. It's good stuff. It's been selling well ever since why would we open something called Club Gitmo? Because we originally heard that it was certainly not being treated, and the people there were not being treated the way they are described in this report. It was quite the opposite from the get-go, we've been told. Remember the hell that broke loose when Michael Isikoff ran this BS story that a Koran was flushed down the toilet? And we found out that wasn't true? And Obama has always said that the existence of Club Gitmo is nothing more than a recruitment tool for more terrorists. So what are we supposed to do? Shut down prisons because it just makes the family members mad, and shut down prisons because that just infuriates our enemies even more and causes more to sign up? Well, if that's the case, why do we have anybody in jail? People are lunatics. Brett Baer said to Dick Cheney, you had one detainee, Rahman, who died in captivity, November 2002.
3,000 Americans died on 9/11 because of what these guys did. And I have no sympathy for them. I don't know the specific details. I'm sure there were instances cited in the report. I haven't read the report, but I know for a fact.
No, wait, you haven't read it?
6,000 pages. I've seen parts of it. I read summaries of it. I keep coming back again to the basic fundamental proposition. How nice do you want to be to the murderers of 3,000 Americans? I think that what needed to be done was done. I think we were perfectly justified in doing it, and I'd do it again in a minute.
And we've got more from Cheney, but I have to take an obscene profit break. Do that and be right back.